My guy Ari. He wants to know, do the Pistons keep Sasser?
So if I all right, if I were to put the odds out here on FanDuel, and if I were making a bet, which maybe not the best, maybe not the best thing to be saying with all the Pistons stuff that's been going on, but if I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I would say that Marcus Sasser is probably not going to be with the Pistons beyond this year. And that's surely just a math reason. If you look at the salary numbers, and if you look at the contract for Marcus Sasser, this year Marcus Sasser is going to be at about $2.8 million of salary. Next year it goes up to $5 million. So the only way Marcus Sasser is on the team going forward is if he cracks the rotation on a consistent level and actually proves to be worth that jump in salary. Otherwise, if Marcus Sasser's been the Marcus Sasser we've seen, no disrespect to Marcus Sasser, but Marcus Sasser's not going to be in Detroit beyond this year. Like, that's just, you can't, especially in a modern NBA where, again, we talk about the importance of like salary flexibility and like managing your cap room. Like it might sound little, but $2 million is a lot when you talk about the roster that you can build and what you can offer someone, and before going into the tax and all of those different things. So all of that to say, unless Marcus Sasser has like a breakout year, which, with all due respect to Marcus Sasser, I just don't think we've seen anything at this point to suggest that he's not just going to be what he has been. I think the odds are that he's probably someone that can be moved at the deadline and whatever Detroit does, because it's a pretty flexible contract that has a team option that teams can essentially shed salary.
I mean, we've talked about Marcus Sasser when I've had you on the podcast. My thing with him has nothing to do with the availability or the playing time he gets.
Right.
My thing is, when you look at the shooting guard rotation, because he's a shooting guard, he's not a point guard. Whether people want to argue with me, it's like talking to a brick wall. Marcus Sasser is not a point guard. He can bring the ball up the court, but he's not a guard that you want to set up your offense every possession. He can do it, from time to time. You look at the shooting guards. You have Jaden Ivey, Harris LeVert, Duncan Robinson. You just drafted Chaz Lanier. I'd like to assume he's probably above Chaz Lanier in the pecking order, because he's, going into his third year now.
Can you assume that?
I can't. I'd like to assume that. I don't know how Chaz Lanier is going to, perform in preseason or have a good training camp. Just to say, I think it's a situation that's out of his control. Even when Jaden Ivey went out, they still went out and traded for Dennis Schroeder. That spoke volume, because there wasn't any room for him in the shooting guard room, because you had Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley on your roster. It's not really his fault. It's just the way the roster is. I think it's going to be a situation where the front office has conversations. Sasser may say, hey, I love being a part of this team. I'm just looking for a bigger role. Now, he has not said that. He's been a true professional. We've never seen him ever, bash the coach, complain about playing time. When he has played, he has produced.
Consummate professional.
Ultimate professional. I just think there's a situation where if a trade makes sense for the Pistons to move him to an ideal situation where he gets more playing time, I think that's probably what's going to happen. But I don't really know too many teams that are going to offer you a whole lot for a guard that doesn't get a whole lot of playing time. You might get a second-round pick, and at that point, do you just want to take a second-round pick, or would you rather have Marcus Sasser on the roster for this year, just in case of emergency? Because I felt like that was just kind of his role. Like, if, Malik or Tim weren't bringing any type of defensive effort, JB would play him. If there was an injury or it was late in the season, JB would play him. Not to say that he doesn't trust him. It's just the rotations are just so deep at shooting guard. There's just not a whole lot of playing time for him, and it's not really its fault. It's the way the roster was constructed. And I still question trading up to draft him by Troy Weaver because I thought the Pistons needed more small forwards at that time. I know they
Yeah.
drafted a star, but I don't really think there was any need for another shooting guard on the roster when you already had Jaden Ivey. It just never made sense from the jump, in my opinion.
And I think one thing that you just said in there that's one of the biggest indicators as to why he might not be prioritized as much going forward is because he was drafted by who?
Troy
Troy
Weaver.
Weaver and not Trajan Langdon. And especially when you're not one of those like pillar, like core foundational pieces, if you weren't the general manager's pick, there is a heck of a lot less attachment to you in your future and where you end up. Now, again, that doesn't mean Trajan doesn't like Marcus Sasser. That doesn't mean they don't appreciate what he brings. But in the reality of the modern NBA, you can't have someone on the roster that you just don't think is going to play in a consistent manner going forward. And like Anthony just laid out, like he's not a point guard. He might be listed as a point guard. He doesn't play point guard. He's not. It's not his natural position. It's not what he's best at. And especially in the roster as constructed, he's not in a position where he's going to play shooting guard at a consistent level. So I just don't see it happening. And so with Marcus Sasser, that just leaves, well, okay, what does the next situation look like? What does the next team look like? And I guess, and again, unless he comes out and proves that he's grown in all these areas and he takes, like that kind of that year 3 leap, that's just the reality of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not that he can't, contribute. I've always felt, I don't know if you feel this way. They tried to put him in a position where, maybe ball handling and passing is maybe like you would rate it like A through F, but maybe he's like a C.
Yeah.
I've always felt like if you put the ball in his hands and you need a basket, that's where I think his A game is. That's where I think
Yep.
he flourishes. He's natural. He's got a really nice handle. He's a scrappy defender. I've always felt like if you put him in kind of like that sixth man, like a Lou Williams type of role where you just need a basket, that's where I think he can flourish. But the problem with that is you have Karis LeVert who does that. You
Yep.
have Duncan Robinson that can be a flamethrower when he gets hot. And you just paid those guys a bunch of money, and they're probably committed to playing 20 plus minutes a night. And Sasser, maybe when you look at the rotation, you look at the way the minutes are distributed right now, he might be around 5 minutes a game right now, 10 minutes a game.
That's
If
being generous.
it's a blowout or JB's looking for maybe a different look. Again, it has nothing to do with his talent. I think he's extremely talented. I think there's a role for him in the NBA. It's just the way the team has been constructed. And you mentioned it earlier. Trajan has only drafted 3 guys on this roster. It's Chaz Lanier, Ron Holland, and Bobby Klitman. And, Chaz Lanier to me, I think does a lot what Marcus Sasser could provide. I don't think Chaz Lanier has a handle like Marcus Sasser, but he can shoot the 3-point shot at a pretty good clip. But it's a tough situation for him, man. I really don't know what his future holds with the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, I think he will be in the NBA. I think there'll be teams that would be interested in his services, but I just don't know what it will be with the Pistons.
And like the reality of it is, like Chaz Lanier is probably getting paid a fraction of like he signed like a 4-year $8.79 million contract. So it looks like, yeah, essentially like he's gonna be getting paid about half, if that, like what Marcus is gonna be getting paid next year, like and going forward. Like so simple math problem here. Marcus Sasser would have to be 100% the player that Chaz Lanier is to justify that.
Yeah, and in case, like, even if there's an injury, I'm not even entirely sure he would get more clock at shooting guard. Like, who's to say you can't throw Ron Holland in at shooting guard, which I think Ron Holland's more of a 2-3 archetype. Like,
Yeah.
I feel for Sasser. Seems like a really good kid, really, true professional. But it's just a situation he's in. It's kind of like OKC in a sense where they have so many talented guys, and there's a lot of guys on that roster that don't get any clock.
Yeah, it's also just kind of the unfortunate reality of being like an undersized guard who's not a great point guard in the NBA is just unless you're really going out and doing some of these things at just like a really elite level, it's just going to be hard to find a consistent spot in the rotation. And granted, some of it is he hasn't really had like a full chance or like a
Yeah.
like a big runway to really go out there and have that opportunity. But again, part of the reason why is because that's just the business of the league. They're looking to take that step up, and like they're not they can't wait for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at players that are similar to him. I'm like, a Gary Trent, for example, he's not getting paid anything. Like, shooters used to actually get paid top dollar, and now the league doesn't value shooters like they used to. And it's such a weird kind of like transition because I mean, I remember when the Pistons paid Ben Gordon a shitload of money,
Yeah,
and
I try
now
to
you got
forget, but I remember that too. Yeah.
yeah, you got guys like, Malik Beasley last year, Gary Trent, not get paid as much, but it's just a weird situation. My apologies for bringing up Ben Gordon, man.